Oisín Fagan is a former professional boxer. Born in Dublin, a promising young sportsman in his youth, he went to the USA on a full soccer scholarship, and his life after that was the stuff of film, maybe, because I know you've wrote a book, Oisín, but this is film stuff. You're very welcome to the Celtic Soul Podcast. As we leave lockdown now behind and we get back to some kind of normality, how's the last 18 months been for yourself?
Well, I still have a job, so I'm happy enough. It's been tough. Like my parents live about 10 minutes away only, and we were kind of I'd park up in the driveway, and they jump out into their car and we'd open the windows and talk that way. So we've been getting on okay. That's been the way it's been working up to now. My fiance was away for 10 months. She was minding her mum over in Slovakia. And so that was tough too. So everything's kind of culminating. It's been tough. I know it's been tough for everybody. And actually, it's probably not as been so tough for me other than like missing the girlfriend and then like obviously you can't go in and hug your parents and stuff like that. So that's hard. I've got brothers and sisters too, and nieces and nephews, so it's hard not to be able to hug them either. But I'd say there's been people who have had a lot worse than I have, so I'm not too bad, and I'm still working. I'm still going out to schools and looking after the kids there, and trying to teach them a new sport, which is boxing. We've been in our job about 10 years now, but it's the first time in Ireland actually that boxing has been kind of like on the physical education curriculum. We're the guys, myself and former gold medalist Michael Carruth. We've got Noel Burke, Ed Griffin, and Paul Quinn, who are great community guys all from Dublin actually. And Noel's actually Kelly Harrington's trainer, so you might know him just by being on the TV lately.
Yeah, I've been in and around boxing from since I was a kid. I had 10 good years with the Holy Family in Drogheda, so
nice, okay.
Yeah, it was a great I suppose upbringing, because you were going from school. You didn't have much time to hang around the streets. You were going from school, you were home, and you were in the gym most nights. And the Christy McKenna and now Damien's took over. It's just such a big part of the community, and it's like it's a world class facility now. A far cry from the prefabs that we started in. It was actually,
I think everybody had prefabs in Ireland at some stage.
Yeah, the prefabs were actually the school I went to. That was the first school before they built the school. We were in prefabs, and then it got ran down, got vandalised, and the boxing club took it over. They found and within 12 months they had the first season. They had the first Irish champion, which was a juvenile, and the second season they had the first senior champion, which was a big thing. A guy called Johnny Taunton, and he's still involved as a coach.
That's it.
So yeah, it's been great. But look, that's enough about me. Oisín, firstly, take me back to Dublin, where life began, and where you're back working in Dublin now. As I said, you went to the States on a soccer scholarship. But growing up, firstly, before we maybe talk about the afterlife of your professional boxing career, take me back to those young days in Dublin, growing up.
Yeah, young days. I'm from originally from Kilmanagh and Tala, which is on the south side, more west side of Dublin, and I lived there until I was about 12, and I moved over the north side to Portmarnock, and I was a very keen sports person in general. I didn't even look at boxing back. I used to watch boxing on the TV when I was a kid and all that, but I was never into boxing as in I never fought. Didn't really start doing much in boxing until I was really, really old. I was 30 when I started taking it very seriously. But so when we moved over to Portmarnock, I was playing Gaelic and hurling. They were my main sports at the time. When I went over to Portmarnock, then started playing spell with St. Malachy's and Edenmore and Glebe North and Balbriggan, and these are all Premier League sides for my age, you know, at the time. So I was quite a good footballer, and ended up kept on playing soccer. The reason why I kept on playing soccer rather than Gaelic and football then in the end was because I knew I was dedicated enough to keep at something enough, and maybe I'd be able to make a few quid or something. That's always what I had in the back of my mind, you know. So I was always thinking that I'd try to be a professional soccer player. That would have been my dream back in the day, you know. So
it was never my dream because I was useless.
You were sure.
I was probably the best sub in the street.
Right.
I think they only played me because I was fit from the boxing. But the boxing lasted a little longer than the soccer did, and I will delve into America because I'm really interested to hear about the American story. But like when you did come back to Dublin now, and you said you're settled and you're working with is it the Dublin City Council that sponsored the boxing?
Dublin City Council our funders, and we are employed by the Irish Amateur Boxing Association, but the DCC are the ones who fund the program. It's a great program. Like we've literally got tens of thousands of kids involved in boxing who may never ever put on a pair of gloves in their lives before, and we do this. It's a 13-week course. We do a bronze, silver, and gold course, 4 weeks. And we start off very basic, and then we go into, say, a class, so of about 20, 25 kids, go into a class, and we bring them along, and like we might have 4 classes per school, you know, and so out of those 100 kids, like you bring them along, then you start to put headgear on them for the next for the silver, and we let them body spar and just get a feel of having gum shields in and body sparring, and then for the ones who are really interested and for the ones who show some promise, we'll bring them to the stadium, to the National Stadium where the high performance gym is, and we try to match them up really equally. So it's different. We're very different from say what the clubs will do, because the clubs always want a winner out of their club, you know. Whereas we, as the five development officers, we just want a good show. So we have them all sparring against each other for those 4 gold weeks, and in the gold weeks we match them up perfectly. And I'd say in 1,000 matches, we've had 2 nosebleeds because everybody is so well matched, and they've got they have all that great experience of going to the National Stadium. And actually, I won my Irish side in that ring, and Carruth won his, and Noel won his, and so in the space of 13 weeks, they can actually fight in the same ring as we fought in for our titles and stuff like that. So it's great incentive for the kids to keep going, you know.
Yeah, it's brilliant, and I'm sure some of them then will actually go on and join boxing clubs. Yeah,
well, that's our main goal, is for them to go and join the local boxing club, you know.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Oisín, is there someone in the background shaking their feet or doing something? No.
That's probably me shadow boxing.
Yeah, don't be shadow boxing. Stay as still as you can. or Roland, the producer, will kill me. Roland, you can cut that out.
Yeah. I can never stop. I'm always bouncing around. Yeah.
Now, Oisín, you as you said, you know, brought up in Dublin, great soccer player, but Gaelic and hurling was the 4 sports, I suppose. But soccer soccer was a way out. And it did become a way out, because you must have been quite clever as well, because you won a scholarship, a full soccer scholarship to America. And I've been looking at old ESPN press releases from your fighting days, and it's telling me that you did really well, because you got degrees in political journalism and physical education. But did you think then that you were set for a life in football with a career and then the fallback of, politics or journalism when you retired.
Yeah, no, I understand what you were saying, but I didn't start off being a good student. You see, when I was in secondary school, I was a big messer, and I just didn't want anything to do with school at all, and so I didn't bother. And see, as you were saying, though, in the end, I came good. But the thing was, I was 24 when I actually went over my football scholarship. So I copped on. I'd worked on the building sites. I'd worked in the delicatessens and stuff like that. And I was just thinking to myself, there must be a better way than this, Like, fair play to anybody who does those jobs. They're tough jobs, but I didn't want a tough job. I wanted to be on the easy street, However, I was a messer in school. I ended up getting thrown out of school, and then only after a long time working hard and thinking to myself, I really should have knuckled down when I had the chance to knuckle down. I played in the Junior Cup final, Leinster Junior Cup final for Portmarnock, and we played Cherry Orchard in when we played in Dalymount. No, it wasn't Dalymount. It was in Talca Park, and I had a particularly good game, and I won man the match and got and there was a nice bit of an article in the newspaper and the Independent or something the next day saying that I was one to watch for the future or something like that. And that was class because what I was doing at the time was trying to send over my CV for 2 American colleges because one of my friends had been over there, and he originally went over to Chicago. And I did well in the practice game that they put me on. That was my first time in America. I was in a practice game in Chicago for Lewis University, and I did well. I scored three in my first little kind of 5-a-side game. And I said, this is pimps. Like I was heads and tails better than some of the lads I taught, And the guy brought me into the dressing room or into his office afterwards and said, "Listen, we really want you to come over." And I said, "Great, really sign me up, And this is when I was about 22. And he said, we only offer full scholarships for second-year students on." I said, so how much would I have to pay? And he said, about $5,000 for the first year. I was going, what? That's the end of that. That was it. And so he said that he leave my name on my stats on the internet, because they had little groups between all the coaches. He says, so if anybody else comes in for you, I'll put in a good word for you. And about 2 years later, then they did. And after that match against Cherry Orchard, I sent over a couple more CVs, and a few colleges picked up on it, and they got in touch with me. And one particularly in Oklahoma, USAO, University of Science and Arts, asked me would I sign for them. I said, full scholarship? He said, yeah, absolutely. I was going, yeah, sign me up. That was it. So 4 years is what I had over there with them. Actually, it was a five-year deal because I took on my politics and journalism later on in the first term. So I ended up saying almost 5 years there. Well, 5 years, and then the rest of my life started.
But you're not the first Dublin man we've had on the podcast that won a soccer scholarship to the States. We had a guy called Johnny Vaughan from the north side of Dublin. Johnny Vaughan. Johnny's still over there. Yeah,
I don't think he'd know me. Well, maybe, but because I think Johnny Vaughan played for Home Farm, didn't he?
I think, and his brother Trevor as well. Trevor played for Drogheda.
I think it was Trevor.
Yeah,
I think Trevor played in the great Home Farm team.
He was in that team with Gary Kelly in that. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, we used to play against them. They were in our league, but they were tops. They were tops, top of the league. They were brilliant. They were, yeah.
And there's another person we had on the podcast, Gary Kelly. So, it's everything goes full circle. So, listen, you're in the States, right? I suppose living the dream, a student. You're old enough to you're mature enough. You're not a kid over there. So, did you get homesick?
It was just as well because as I was saying, when I got thrown out of school, so I was 17-ish, and I was just so immature that there was not a chance I would have stayed the 4 or 5 years in school in America. No way. So I was blessed in a way. It was the worst time in my life because I got into so much trouble and all that, but it worked out like proper for me, It worked out well in the end because I went over at the exact proper time that I needed to go over. It was a perfect time. I was a little bit older than some of the other guys over there, and I had my head screwed on. Now I say I had my head screwed. I had great times in college as well, but I knew when to stop, So I was all right. It was just a good time for me, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a great opportunity for people to get over. But college finished and you fell on hard times.
Did that, yeah. I wouldn't mind, but I had my degrees, and I thought this is great because at least I had something to fall back on. I thought, but there was because I was running out of my student visa, and so for a few weeks I had to get in the back of my car, and I stayed in the back of my car for a little while. Now, if I had told my mum and dad about this, they would have sent me over money or done whatever it needed to be done to look after me. But I was just so proud that I'd actually, because I got thrown out of school the first time, and now I'm after being a graduate and I got honours in my degree course. I didn't want to tell anybody that I was fell at hard times, because I think just like kind of what you said, you're living the dream. It wasn't a dream until it actually properly happened, So I lived in the car for a little while, not very long, but I used to talk to my pal from Jamaica, Alcino. And he was on the scholarship with me, and he said to me, because myself and Alcino used to partake in extra training, and when we did extra training, we do a little bit of sparring just to keep fit, And he says, I know you haven't done much in the boxing. He says, but you're really good, like, gone really, and it just kind of resonated with me. I had something in the back of my mind saying, okay, well, thanks. And then I left it in the archives for years. But then when it came down to it, Alcino says, would you not go down and see if you can get a professional boxing fight? Might get you a few quid. I was going, really? I'll get battered, like. And he says, well, we thought you were. I always thought you were quite good, and I used to do a bit of boxing. He said, So I was going, yeah, I suppose I'll give it a go. Sure, I'm not afraid to take a punch anyway. So we'll go down. If I get battered, I get battered. Well, I'll go down and I'll give it a go. So I trained for a few weeks. And sure, I used to be going back to my car then and going back and doing my runs at night time. And I went down to this fella and said it's not fight anybody for a few quid, And he said really, and it's kind of one of these Don King kind of characters, kind of rubbing his hands together, saying, I'll get you a fight, don't you worry. I says, when's when the fight be? He said, in 2 weeks' time we've got a local show. And I says, 2 weeks? Are you sure? He said, yeah, well, that's when it's on, I says, how much will I get for that? He says, about $200. I was going, right, okay. He says, but at that stage, $200 better than kicking arse, So I says, yeah, I'll go with that, So I was training on my own, and in between these, I was staying in some of my pals' houses who used to go to college with me and stuff like that. So I'd be getting shower. Listen, the whole living in the car thing only really was between a week and a half and 2 weeks, So I wasn't on death's door or anything, but like I'm still training, and people would ask me around and they'd help me out, like they'd be bringing me over for dinner and stuff like that. So it wasn't that I was going hungry or anything like that. It was just a hard time. Had a lot of time to kind of reflect on life and stuff like that, and then really think about knuckling down. I just wished that somebody could take me on and I'd be able to start doing things properly, So I went in for my first fight. I was against a guy called Sheldon Mosley, who was an amateur at the time, and he was quite good. But I used to spar him in it was called TKO gym back in Oklahoma City. And I used to spar him every now. He was much taller than me, but it was my weight because he was a skinny dude. He kind of reminded me of Tommy Hearns, those long levers on him, you know. And he used to beat me up quite. He used to beat me up in the spars, but he always used to know that I'd keep on coming for him. And I knew that so they said you'll be fighting Sheldon in this fight, you know. I was going, okay. So I knew to myself, right, I'm not going to get badly hurt, because I knew he was good, but he would have been the favourite to win the fight. I went in and I remember I said, whatever happens, I said, I'm not gonna take my foot off the pedal. I'm just gonna keep on throwing like really, really crappy looking shots. You know, they were just so unprofessional looking. I was just throwing hell for leather, but it was working because I was still very fit from being a good footballer, and I had that fitness with me. It was only a 4-round fight, and this guy, even though he was much more polished boxer than I am, couldn't understand why this mad Irishman kept on coming for him, you know. And I remember hitting him an almighty overhand right, and it was an ugly shot because I wasn't a good boxer. Just threw it, and I saw it land on his chin, and I saw his legs buckle. And the referee came in and stopped the fight because he couldn't. He had to hold him up. So I was just shit. I'm just after winning my first professional fight. It's just nuts, right? So I'm walking down towards, and this is where we were in it was called the Farmers Market in Oklahoma City. So it wasn't. It was
Madison Square Garden.
It wasn't Madison Square, not this time, no, right? So then, so it wasn't Madison Square Garden. So it was the Farmers Market, and I ended up going to. Going down to get changed, and I met a principal of a school, a guy called Phil Cunningham, really good guy, and he was at the time I was going out with a girl, and this was Phil, who was her uncle. He says, "That was a great fight," and he says, "And now that you've graduated with your teacher certificate and you're on your way. Would you like to come in for an interview?" I was going, "What?" So in the space of 10 minutes, I was a teacher by day and a fighter by night. It was just a crazy scenario, you know. It was just mad.
So from the back of a car, a proud Irishman that wouldn't ring his mum and dad, from the back of a car into a gym, and first pro fight, stop the favourite, and get out of the ring and get a job. That's not bad going.
It was just a strange state of affairs the way it worked, you know. It was, now I've got faith in God. I know that's not the most popular thing in the world anymore, but I have to say I prayed for things to work out for me, and when I was in that car I cried and I prayed, and I just wished that things were working that way start working out for me, and they did. And you know, even to this day now, I've got loads of faith because it's works for me, you know.
And but you must have had moments in that car that, you know, you wished you were home in Dublin in your bed with a home cooked dinner by mammy, and
it was so tough. Yeah, it was so tough. I was like, I really was. I was in. Now, my mum and dad hate this story because they fear that they could have helped me out at any time if I had opened my mouth, you know. And so they hate me even telling the story that I was homeless, right? Don't be saying that. I understand what they mean because they
making a show of us.
Yeah, basically, yeah. Proper Irish parents, right? Yeah, so that's I try to hold off on that a little bit, but like at the time, I remember it was poignant. Like it was a really tough time for me. But the training sorted me out, and my faith in God sorted me out, and so I just felt like I could keep on going, because that was just. I knew that the one thing that I had going for me was that I was tough, you know. So I was always somebody who would take it on the chin and just keep on marching forward, you know. Unfortunately, it was the same in boxing. So that worked well for me, and sometimes not so well, you know.
Yeah, and like, you get a job in the school, so
yeah.
From my research, it wasn't. You weren't going into a private boarding school. You were going into a tough school. So that must have been a learning curve as well.
It was. The poor kids. I gotta say, the kids I taught were predominantly Latino. You know, so they're mostly Mexican immigrants, came over the border and moved in through Texas and up to Oklahoma. So Oklahoma City was full of Latinos, which it was great. For me, like Irish and Latinos got on really well because we were all Catholic. We liked to have a few drinks. Like the cultures were actually quite similar. However, the obviously there was a language barrier there. But for being a teacher in a Latino school, it was important for the kids to learn English, and all the kids were pretty good at English. It was rare to have anybody, even new kids, that didn't have much English. So everybody got on okay, you know. But listen, I loved working there. It was some of the best times of my life actually working there. The kids were tough. They really were tough, but some sweethearts as well, some great kids, you know. And even to this day, only like on Facebook and all, they'd be on to me say, "Hey, coach," and all this, you know, and say, "What's going on?" And there's about three of my former students who are professional boxers now.
I was just going to ask, have any of them turned to boxing?
Yeah. There's been a few of them, yeah.
Oh, brilliant!
So it's crazy, yeah. And there's a guy called Alex Acedo who he won. Well, he fought for a world title there about 3 years ago. Now he wasn't in my class, but he used to come watch me. He was in the school down the road from us, and he used to hang around with some of the lads from my school. He became a really good boxer, and he fought for a world title and he lost. I think it was a split decision he lost out on, so he was really, really close. But he's after retiring now. He got a brain injury, which was a horrible thing for him. But I think he's on the road to recovery now, thank God, you know. But, yeah.
And I'm always interested in tough neighbourhoods because, like, there's so many of them, and there's, like, you know, people who, you know, turn to boxing and football, and, you know, music is always, these are always a way out for people who may not be the best educated people in the world. But I always find within these communities, and it sometimes gets overlooked, there's always a great spirit. There's always a great community spirit where people will, you know, okay, there's baddies everywhere, but they will pull together. And as you said to me there, and this interests me, about, you know, the Latino community, the Mexicans, they you know, did a lot in common with the Irish. And it brings me back to Glasgow because when the Glasgow immigrants, when the Irish people emigrated to Glasgow, they faced a lot of hardship, but there was also communities from East Europe as well came in, and Italians, and so there was a lot of other communities. And it's funny, it's something I'd never think of. You mentioned the Catholic religion, and that is something that brings people together from different countries who don't speak the same language. Yeah. So here you are 100 years later. Here you are 100 years later facing, you know, in that kind of environment. So, as an Irishman in this Latino, mostly Mexican community, how did you find it, like, outside the school?
I loved it, and you'd see some of the kids getting picked up from school, and their grandfather picked them up this week, and he'd only be coming up because after school, one of my duties were to direct the traffic, so it was kind of like a lollipop lady on the road. So everybody used to come up and they'd be talking to me as they're walking across the street, and before you walk across the street, somebody new would come to me and said, "Hey, you're the fighter. I saw you fight Chávez, and you beat the shit out of Chávez," and all this. And I was going, "All right, thanks, man." Now, and I made some great friends in that community, and I'm going back to the war that the Americans had with the Mexicans, you know, and the San Patricios, they went with the Mexican army and fought fought for them in the war as well. So we've got. So even on St. Patrick's Day, the San Patricios are always lauded and given kudos, in the Mexican community. So it's pretty cool there. It's good when you look back at history and that kind of stuff comes up too,
Yeah, we've so much in common with people that we don't even realise. Like when we think of who we have stuff in common with, we don't. I would never have thought of Mexico. So it's something I'm going to check out now. Now listen, you became a professional boxer, running alongside teaching.
Yeah.
When people think about boxing, they think about Sky Sports box office and that, and they think it's all glamorous and these, training camps and 24/7 on HBO, but it's not.
No.
But it was for some of your opponents. So you had 41 fights. You retired in 2015. Your record stood at 27 wins from 37 bouts with 15 knockouts. It's a long stint, but you picked up a couple of titles along the way, and you were also involved in a fight of the year in 2009. And I will get to the Amir Khan stuff, but because that kind of overshadows a lot of your career, I think when people say, "Oh, that's the guy that fought Amir Khan." But tell us a little about that boxing journey, and leave the Khan thing out, and we will get to that.
Yeah. Well, the first big fight I probably had was Chávez. I fought Julio César Chávez in the MGM Grand in Las Vegas after my sixth fight. And he was 5-0 at the time, and I'd won 4 out of 5 at the time. And I felt like I won the fight after the fight, and for years after they reckoned that I was his toughest opponent too. And so that was not, now he got the results, but I beat him in 3 out of the 4 rounds. There was one round in the third round I threw a silly uppercut because I was so new at the sport, didn't really know. I was just fighting on instinct, so I threw a silly uppercut from way out, and he tapped me with a right hand and my glove touched the ground. And I got back up before the ref even called one. I was so embarrassed, and I went for him again. The ref said, "No, that's a knockdown." And so that turned a 10-9 round for me to a 10-8 round for him. And that's where I feel that my fortune had got turned on its head, So I won 3 out of the 4 rounds, and I was winning that other round as well until I touched my hand against the ground. So that was unfortunate. That was one of my big fights then at the start of my career. He didn't expect somebody who was going to give it as much as I did, So, and since then, his George Foreman had said that was the toughest fight and everything. Like I met George Foreman that night, and he said, "Oh, they definitely didn't expect you," So that was nice to hear these things. Just loads of little anecdotes came with those fights. Then I fought. What else did I fight then? What's his name? Paul Spadafora then, and Paul Spadafora would have been more famous for, well, he was a world champion himself, and he was 40, he had 40 wins without a loss, but even more famous, he's more famous for beating up Mayweather in the spar. I think you can still get that on YouTube. I think I watched it about 2 or 3 years ago, where he beat up Mayweather. Mayweather lay down the middle, and he's going, and he seemed like he was way beaten up. It was a strange one because I'd never seen Floyd being beaten up before in my life, But now this is ages ago, but that was one that got through the net, and I think that's the reason why. Well, so I heard, this is the reason why Floyd never got let anybody in to record his spars ever since then, But
he done okay, but didn't he?
Yeah, all right. Yeah. So I got a split decision with Spadafora, and most people thought I won that fight, but nearly never won the race. It was a shame. I got so many nearlies. I got split decisions against a few world champions and top boxers, but never actually got that real famous win. You know, that golden cards that get you a huge fight somewhere, and you be the main man on the card. Like if I had a beaten Spatafore that time, I wouldn't have been the main guy, and for somebody else to come in. Losses, that just never happened for me, you know. It was just a shame.
Yeah, and do you think you got these fights because you were you know, gamey, and the crowd were liking you, and
exactly,
you know,
exactly.
But like, as a boxing fan, I knew about you. I knew you were boxing over there. I'm always amazed when I see boxers with no amateur careers getting into the pro game. It's because it's like, because I was an amateur boxer, there was no way I was going to go into the pro game, because I know how tough it is.
Well, the thing for me was that I was always very fit, always very tough, and then with a few training sessions and stuff like that in the skills department, I was never very skillful, but I had some good trainers, and the trainers brought me through Eddie Autry in Oklahoma, and Steve Thomason, and Gray was there, and there was a few really poignant times I got trained by really good guys, and even though I kept on saying that I wasn't a great boxer, I was becoming a good boxer because of these guys, and of course my attitude was second to none. I always had a great attitude to training, because I'm still training like every single day. Like, I've probably taken 20 days off in 30 years now, which is like, so every single day. Even when I broke my leg against Cannes, crutched 5 miles a day on the crutches, shadow boxing in a swivel chair. So every single day, except, and the 20 times in 30 years that I took off, it may have been a funeral that turned into a piss up, and I probably still ran home from town. Like, so I still do that just to keep my head right. I have to train. That's how I roll.
I feel ashamed now, because I've probably done 20 training sessions in 30 years.
Class. That's all right. I love that discipline.
You know, there's not many people go from light middleweight to super heavy overnight.
Brilliant.
But you did come back to Dublin, and then you did become known, because now people didn't know that you'd fought Chavez and that. But
yeah, that's true.
You know, you come home, you won an Irish title, as you said, in the National Stadium, which is you know, anyone that knows boxing in Ireland know how special it is. Boxing in the National Stadium yourself, it's a special, and it must be special for those kids that are going in from the from the training course you do. But the Khan fight, you know, you're in the spotlight then, because Amir Khan is, I know he won a silver medal, but he's the golden boy. You know, he's made millions out of boxing. He's fought the best. You know, he's won world titles. And here's this. Before I go into this, I just want to say something I picked up on when you said, you know, you had heart. I think you can be the best boxer in the world. You can be the most skillful boxer in the world. But if you don't have a pair of balls and a big heart, and you're not able to bite down on that gum shield when it gets tough, all that skill and fitness goes out the window. And that's probably what makes makes fighters, you know, champions. And the pro game is such a tough game and a hard game, you know. So I take my hat off to you. But the Khan fight, did you think this is, you know, like, obviously the money was better for that fight than some fights you had. Did you think this is it? You know, I'm making the headlines now at home. I've gone full circle from living in a car in America, from my first pro fight, to here I am back in Dublin, and people are talking about me, and I'm on the telly. And tell us about the experience.
The experience was a good experience before, obviously, the fight, but the experience was good, and I was kind of getting used to that kind of way of life. I don't mean the way of life. I was never one of these given a large type of people, you know. Like I'm a socialist after all, Irish Republican socialist. So how could you be? You'd be brought down to life real quick, wouldn't you? If you started acting the bollocks like that. So I always had my feet under me. So I ended up. But that kind of lifestyle was starting to be a normality for me, and the reporters would be out to do some interviews, that kind of stuff, and be on TV often enough. I really wasn't a household name, although when it came to the camp fight, because I was in training camp so much, I didn't really realise that people were kind of watching, you know. I suppose at the time, not until afterwards. Now, loads of people who I now know went to that fight, and I would never known that until some night I might be out for a night out, and they tell me. I was going, really? You were at that fight as well? So I always say, oh, sorry about that, you know, because what happened was then they asked me to fight. I wouldn't mind, but like there was a few lads who turned down the camp fight, even from around these shores. So when Brian Peters asked me to fight him, I said, yeah, that's a great fight for me. I'll go with that. And we had identified that Khan's weakness was around the top of his head and around his temples. So any time I was sparring, I was up sparring in Brain's gym in Belfast. I'd be sparring with McCluskey, who was very awkward, and C.D. Hoyan, and a few of the other lads, and they tried to kind of mimic Khan's, but nobody can really mimic his speed. His speed is incredible, you know. Anyway, I went in. I was quite confident going into the fight, and then I remember coming out all guns a-blazing, and hit me with a couple of shots. He hit me with a couple of shots, and then I remember him throwing a bit of a chopping right, and I just remember my leg going from under me and broke my leg about 10 centimeters over my ankle, you know. I remember hearing the crack of the bone. Like, I was going, oh no, what's after happening there? And so I had to climb up off the floor. I had to use all my energy to get back up, and I tried to pretend that there was nothing wrong. But the minute it was my lead leg, you know, so it was my left leg. So as I was going to kind of go for him again, the minute I put my foot down to push hard, push my back foot to get onto my front foot, I just collapsed again. And I think I remember throwing a few digs, and I landing on his gloves, or I was still trying to throw, but any time he got out of range, it would be absolute agony to try and get back into range. And so I was falling without actually being punched, you know. So I was falling down. Then the referee, who had ref me before and he knew it was tough, thought that there was something wrong. And then at the time, I think John Breen, I think I'd gone down 3 times and twice without being punched. So he was looking at me, the ref was looking at me, and Cam was biting at the bit. And I saw the ref John Breen throwing in the towel, because he knew obviously there was something wrong as well, because I'd gone back to the corner and said, my ankle's fucked. And he says, yeah, I'm ready to go on. I said, yeah, I'll go on, but I don't know what's happening there. And so we threw in the towel, knowing that I don't usually go down anyway. And then, but the lads, Can and Mickey Van, had their faces on me. They didn't see the towel coming in. And when I saw the towel coming in, I dropped my hands. And then that gave Can the impetus just to run and finish me off. Like, so I started falling down. And then Mickey Van jumped on me to stop me getting back up again. And sure, he almost pinned me to the ground, and he hurt me leg even more, I'd say, because he just kept me there. I was going, oh, this is the worst night of my life. So it was a horrible night. I absolutely despise even talking about that night, because it was horrible. I wouldn't mind, but because I didn't know the diagnosis that it broken, I just felt like, even though I'd heard the crack, I felt that it went over my ankle, say, and I was carrying all my gear back from and they had us. It was a strategic thing by the promoters. I think they had us about a mile away from the about a kilometre away from the dressing room, and I was carrying gear and stuff like that with a broken leg to the dressing room. It was agony, absolute agony. And only the following day when I came back to Dublin, I said, "No, there's something dead wrong with that leg," and ended up, the fibula was broken. It was a spiral break in the fibula that went up about 10 inches. So I was in a cast for about 3 months.
Yeah, I broke my ankle, and I wasn't in a fight. I broke it, and I was I think it was the first time I started suffering a bit with depression, because I'd never felt like I'd never been injured before in that. But you're after coming out from a fight where the world of boxing is focusing on it, so you must have felt, did you feel like, you'd let yourself down, even though you had a broken leg? Yeah. Was stuff going through your brain that, It
was worse, like apart from personal stuff and all that, it was the worst professional night of my life. I hate that night. I don't like talking about it. And when I talk about it, I suppose time's a healer and all that. So I suppose now that people know that my leg was broken, it's a little bit better. But up until, listen, I do still have to explain to people that I broke my leg. People that say, "Oh, remember you got battered by a can," and that would drive me bananas. Like, I don't know what fucking happened, you bastards. So I'd have to go through that whole rigmarole about talking about it again. It's just a bad thing to happen to somebody who was just so dedicated to me sport and to training and stuff like that. It's hard.
Yeah, but you're the third boxer we've had on the show, and and they've all had different stories. Like, yeah. Gary Murray was on, and Gary fought for the Celtic title and ended up in a coma. And I'd interviewed Gary at a live gig before the fight, and then. Obviously, he was sick, like he was touch and go, and then when he got well enough, and he still has moments. He says when he got well enough, we done another live show with him before a game, and it was great. Like the audience was the same audience, and they gave him such a welcome. And then I've had him on the podcast, and he's coaching now, and he's a boxing gym, and he came back from that, which is probably, the hardest thing to come back from. And I had Scotty Cardle on, and Scotty was, touted as the next big thing. Scotty had, he was in Eddie Hearn's camp, Joe Gallagher's gym. So, Scotty he won the British title. I'd been to a couple of his fights. His dad, Joe, had got me ringside, which was great as a boxing fan. But, when I spoke to Scotty after it, when he lost his British title, and then he fought Ricky Bones as a late substitute, and he told me how bad it was when boxing was over, when he realised boxing was over. He really had a tough time with his mind and that. So, it's easy for people to say, "Oh, can beat you up," or can, batter you and all this, when they don't really know what a boxer's life is. And even as someone who follows boxing, it's only when I get speaking to these people that you see it ain't all, Anthony Joshua and Tyson Fury, and Mayweather and McGregor.
Yeah. Funny you said that, because the guys who are watching on the TV don't see the work that you put in for. Like, as I was saying, 30 years training every single day. They say, "I'd fight him for 50 grand. I'd fight him for this. I'd fight him for that." I said, but you wouldn't get into the position to fight him for that, because you don't train. You sit on the couch and you watch the telly. Like, it's going, I've trained me bollocks off for 30 years, and I only got half a chance. I didn't even get a full chance of fighting at the best of my ability. I broke my leg in the first round. And now, obviously, I got back up to fight again in the second round, but that's just because I'm a bit mad, like. But they don't see the hard work that goes in to get you into the positions to compete at that level,
Yeah. So, and the highest level, and and you're so honest as well. You say, like, I wasn't, I wasn't the best boxer in the world, but you gave 100%. And I get that kind of feeling from you I remember speaking to you. You probably don't remember. We met each other at a Wolf Tones gig. Over in one of the posh hotels on the south side, Balls Bridge, I think.
So did I get up on stage that night?
I don't know. I think they were doing a benefit gig for a child or something, and I took a minibus up, and we had a few sherbets on the way up, and a few drinks on the way up.
Boxing at the time though? Had I been boxing?
I think you possibly could have been just maybe at the end of your career, or maybe coming to the end of it. But you were with one of your pals, a big tall lad. But we had a great chat at the back of the hall that night. And I went, oh, he's a decent lad, you know. But
cheers, man.
When I do a bit of research on you, I know that you are a decent lad because from your time in America, you were involved with charities, and you're still involved with charities now in Dublin. Can you tell us a little bit that, because it's of interest to our listeners, because you know, we've always said, you know, and they won't be able to see, but you're wearing a Celtic jersey. We've always said, you know, people don't need to be a Celtic fan to come on the show, but they just need to share our values. And one of those values is the history, you know, of why Celtic was founded. It's charitable roots. And could you just tell us a little about your involvement with charity, first in the States and then back home?
Yeah. Well, because I was going through such a hard time in America, I remember one time I got into trouble. I used to go. I went down to help out the Catholic Worker House. Actually, I got help from the Catholic Worker House. I took had an injury, and I took some ibuprofen. It was penicillin, and I guess I must have been allergic to it, and I started coming out in hives, and my throat started clogging up and all this kind of stuff. And one of my friends who's living over there still, he says, I'll get in touch with Bob from the Catholic Worker House. He'll sort you out. And they brought me to the hospital, and they gave me antihistamines, and they put me on a drip, and they looked after me, you know. I was going, that was such a nice thing for them to do. I says, do you work around? Did those guys work around here? Would they need a volunteer or somebody to help them out? Because I was really, really, really in their debt for looking after me. They didn't have to do that. He said, yeah, on Saturday mornings we fill cars and we bring it around poor people in Oklahoma. Like, it's kind of like food donations and stuff like that. So that's what we used to do. So I was doing that for a long time, and it just makes you appreciate the stuff that you already have, you know, because there's some really, really good people out there just going through really hard times, you know. So it was just it was a real eye opener for me, and so I spent a long time until I moved out back home. I worked with them on my Saturdays, and then there was a group called the Show Racism the Red Card, who asked me to be the boxing officer for their group. And I don't know if you know, there was a couple of lads who were in the same boat as me. Like, they wouldn't have been hugely well known, but some of us decided that we'd be the ambassadors for show Racism the Red Card for our specific sports, you know. So Kieran Kilkenny, who was a Dublin maestro, he was himself and myself were the Dublin guys who were in with that crowd for a while, and just being I did work. I did a couple of things for Focus Ireland as well. A couple of ads. I got pictures taken with kids, and it wasn't a big deal. But again, Focus Ireland is a great charity too. You know, there's a lot of really good charities who I'd certainly give support to. You know, listen, we're all human at the end of the day, and some people need help, and the more people that can kind of show awareness, or like at least as I was saying, I'm not very well known, but Kieran Kilkenny, he was certainly known, especially in Dublin, and he was one of the big advocates for that charity. And then with the Focus Ireland, then I just lend my hand to anything with it. That's a good cause, It's kind of, I guess it's kind of an Irish thing because of our history. Why wouldn't you be? Although there's an awful lot of these newly right-winged crowds here in Ireland, I don't understand where we got them. But it's horrible. I don't understand where there's nowhere in history where we were ever like some of this crowd nowadays.
The propaganda machine. It's. Yeah, it is a strange one. I've always found that with some people, and we've seen some of them during COVID coming out as well. But the Ireland you left was a white Ireland. I remember going to National Stadium to box, and the only black boxer was Tommy Hillman from Belfast, from the New Hill Club in Belfast. He's actually a first cousin of a lad I go to games with, Adrian Hillman, and Tommy, I remember Tommy, and there was no racism towards Tommy. There might have been institutionalised racism, there might have been stuff, but I never ever experienced it. Even when you look at the Irish football team, over the years we had, we Paul McGrath, we had Chris Houghton, who was the first black player to play for Ireland, Terry Phelan. So we didn't have a hell of a lot. So when you went to America, your experience a multicultural society, so that does help, because when immigrants started coming into this country, that's when we realised that, we never thought we were a racist country, but we actually were when people started coming in, and so people were being treated.
Absolutely baffles me to see Irish racists. I think that's like an oxymoron, isn't it?
Yeah.
An Irish racist. How the hell can you be a racist after all the trouble we went through in our history? Yeah. They're just dummies. And that's why I'm proud to follow Celtic, because Celtic Football Club has been a club open to all from day one. Protestants, Catholics, Jews, Muslims, black, white, red, whatever colour, and the fan base is the same. I meet people from all walks of life, all races, and all backgrounds. People with money, people who don't have money, but when they all stand it makes me really proud, because Celtic would have been like one of the stalwarts of the anti-racist crowd, and obviously because of the Irish influence as well, because we were poor, because we were the immigrants at one stage and all that. Surely, that always has a knock-on effect, But Celtic are really taking it out under the collar. It's a great club in that sense. I'm very, very proud to be a Celtic fan. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and it's like, and I think we can learn a lot from the likes of Brother Walford, and the legacy he left behind. It's certainly a different. I think he would turn in his grave if he's seen some of the stuff that the PLC get up to these days, and the businessmen that run the club. But there is a huge charity arm of the club still, with the Celtic Foundation, and they do great work. And then there's so many other charities in Glasgow and throughout the world that are helped out by Celtic fans. So that's something we can all be proud of. I think your phone's going there. Oisín, just before I let you go, as I did say, we chatted at that Wolf Tones gig. It was the only time I ever met you. This is the first time I've spoken to you. So thank you so much for taking the time out to share some of your story with us, because I know there's a lot more, and I'm really looking forward to reading the book when it does get published. I know you're.
If I get a publisher,
I know you're holding out for a publisher. I've been following you on social media. But every one of my guests jumps into the Celtic Soul time machine, and if you could go back to somewhere in your life, where does that time machine? What moment or memory does that time machine take you back to?
We went to, myself and a couple of my friends went to we down around the time of when Di Canio played for us. Now this is the last time. This was the this is the last time I watched Celtic in Parkhead. We beat Motherwell, and I think it was 2-1 or 3. It was just that it was my first time in Parkhead, and I remember DiCanio where it was tops at the time, and it was just a brilliant time to be around a lot of people who you feel like they're just like you, kind of thing, and it's all to do with football. And this is way before any of this racist stuff came to the fore or anything like this, but we always kind of felt like you had brothers in the crowd, and it was a great time. I just really, really enjoyed it. We went to 2 games that weekend. Actually, it was I think we played Motherwell, and it wasn't any of the Dundees or Rangers or anything like that. It was Motherwell, and I think who did we play that second game? I think it was St. Mirren or something like that. But we won our 2 games, and I was delighted.
And indeed, it was under the management of DiCanio was there, of the great Tommy Bones, and like yourself, a man of and Lord rest him, but a man of huge faith. And like just when you mentioned that, I just thought of Tommy, and and I thought of you praying in that car, and I'm sure if Tommy knew about your plight in the car, he would have prayed for you too, because Tommy would have been a great man to pray. Listen, it's lovely chatting. As I said, I'm looking forward to the book, but I do believe if the book gets published that there's a film in that book, because it's a story that's worth telling, and a story, and like as a boxing fan, but also as a human being, it's a story of, I suppose, ups and downs, from your youth.
That's true.
To getting the break to go to college in America, but your talent brought you there, and then to have the balls to, when you were broken down your luck, to get in the ring. And make a life in boxing, and come back here and win titles, and fight the Chávezes and the Amir Khans, and it's a kind of a Cinderella story. And now you're giving it all back to the kids. With you named Kelly Harrington's coach there, and you named the great Michael Carruth, gold medal winner with the Olympics. So you're keeping good company.
Yeah, true. Yeah, this has been great talking to you, Andrew. Fair play to you.
Oisín, thanks very much. And I'll chat to you again, hopefully. And if you're ever down this way, we'll get you in the studio for another chat.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, God bless you. Talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.